All right, so move on to the next segment. I'll be sharing my thoughts on the UFC Freedom card. So the UFC is coming to the White House this summer. This will probably be the only time in combat sports history you probably see a big, massive event take place at the White House. But it's going down this summer. The UFC Freedom card was announced during the UFC 326 card last night. So my thoughts on the card, guys. Honestly, I thought the UFC Freedom card would have been much better. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that the UFC is going to have a UFC event take place at the White House. I thought for a once-in-a-lifetime event like this, the card could have been much better than this. Don't get me wrong, the main event and the co-main event is very strong. You have two of your biggest UFC stars in Ilia Topuria and Alex Pereira in action. And the main event and the co-main event, two strong title fights where you'll see Ilia Topuria defend his lightweight championship against Justin Gaethje. I think that's going to be a fun, entertaining main event. And then in the co-main event, you have Alex Pereira that is moving up to the heavyweight division after vacating his light heavyweight championship, aims to be a somewhat three-division world champion because it'd be the interim title, but we'll be fighting Ciryl Gane for the interim heavyweight championship. Can we talk about Ciryl Gane that has gotten like 5 title opportunities since being in the UFC? He's never been a world champion, whether it's the interim title, the UFC title. This is now his 5th opportunity at championship goal. But getting back on track here, the rest of the White House card is not White House material. Now, I know injuries might have played a factor here because Kayla Harrison suffered a neck injury. That fight between herself and Amanda Nunes was supposed to take place in January. That fight got postponed. So maybe Kayla Harrison is not ready to go just yet. She's probably still healing up from the neck injury. Meanwhile, Merab is still healing up from injury. We know he fought 4 times last year, 2025. Probably needs a break. But maybe that could have prevented us from getting Merab versus Peter Yan in the trilogy fight for the Bantamweight Championship. I'm looking at Sean O'Malley. He made the card. I would have honestly had Sean O'Malley versus Corey Sandhagen at Bantamweight, 2 fighters that have never fought each other, instead of running Sean O'Malley versus Zahabi. If I said his last name wrong, I apologize there. But why not? And I'm noticing this. You have Michael Chandler on the card. Why not just get Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler out the way? You could just have one of your biggest box office attractions in UFC history at the white card. I think Conor McGregor kind of deserved that for all the work that he's done over the years. Yes, he's been inactive for nearly 5 years, but when the hell are you going to bring him back, Dana White? It's like he's basically on a frozen contract. I would have just got Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler out the way. This is a fight that we should have got all the way back in 2022. And then I'm looking at Bo Nickel being thrown on the main card. That's kind of crazy. I know Dana White is trying to make us buy into his stock that he's the next big thing at the middleweight division, but I wouldn't have this guy on the Freedom card. And then also you had Diego Lopez on the card. I honestly would have did Diego Lopez versus Yair Rodriguez. I know Yair Rodriguez is probably still recovering from his broken hand that he suffered in the back end of 2025. But, man, there's just so many missed opportunities here. This is a once-in-a-lifetime card that you can have at the White House. We'll probably never see this ever again, to be honest. And I don't talk about politics on this podcast. This is all sports. But we know that Dana White and Donald Trump are they're big friends, they're big allies, and they help each other in different things in life. They're really good friends. And Dana White and Donald Trump usually attends the UFC events. So why not, if he's the president of the United States right now, do a once-in-a-lifetime card at the White House? And again, I don't think we'll ever see this ever again. And I don't know. It just feels like Dana White, this is the second time in recent memory where Dana White has missed the opportunity to make a card much bigger. Because if you go back to 2024, the UFC 300 card, yes, that in my opinion, that's one of the best cards of all time. But that only played out because the fighters did their job. On paper, that event could have been much, much bigger. Now, fast forward to the White House, the Freedom card at the White House, you're still going with that same format of not having legends, icons a part of the show. I'm looking at John Jones. I know damn well John Jones would have came back for one more opportunity to headline this card because he's been talking about it over the last couple years. I don't care if he's got a bad hip or not. If you threw him in there against Alex Pereira, someone he wanted to fight, he would have been there at the White House card. You can also say the same thing about Conor McGregor. Why was Conor McGregor not on the UFC 300 card, but you wanted to throw him in return back in 2024 in the summertime? Fast forward now, Conor McGregor's ready to go. He's actually been training, and you still don't put him on the UFC White House card. I honestly think that's crazy. Amanda Nunes as a living legend that's coming back for championship gold. You could have just threw Amanda Nunes on the card against a top-tier bantamweight fighter until Kayla Harrison returns, or have a intra-bantamweight championship fight until she returns. But again, you're missing the mark here, Dana White. I think this card could have been much bigger, much better, and some legends and icons that can still go in the octagon, I think should have been a part of this card for all the contributions that they've done over the years for the UFC. So we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm very interested in the main event and the co-main event for the UFC Freedom card. But the rest of the card could have been saved for another UFC event. I think underwhelming is the best word to describe the Freedom card. And those are my thoughts on the UFC Freedom card that will take place this summer at the White House.